Hey everyone, if you somehow manage to, come off on this stream, I'm just doing a testing to see how that's going to work. So it's not going to be a long stream, I'm just testing. I'm doing this on my phone, so if the quality is crap, that's hmm. Nothing much. I'm just testing this. I may actually do a live Q&A in the future. I'm just testing this. Just don't expect a long stream. If you do have some questions, I guess you can ask them right now. Hmm. I'm probably gonna delete this stream. I'm just testing it to see if I can do this in a future video. Unlike a certain people, I'm not gonna ask for super chats. Wait, can I do super chats? Hmm. Anyone, how's everyone doing? I might in the future. I'm just testing it to see the quality. Not surprised at all. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Fuck. It's ridiculous. Hmm. I'm doing okay. Wait, $40? That is stupid. And I'm doing fine, sub money. I'm gonna do it in a more. I'm gonna do it in a garage. So just bear with me. Hmm. Hmm. Doesn't appear like the quality is that bad. Shit. Yeah. All right. Actually, I think this would be a better place to do it. Hmm. All right. Let's see. Any more comments? Well, if you guys got any questions, I suggest you ask them. I saw it. It's okay. I think people are overreacting. That woman is just the next Captain Marvel. I think it's ridiculous that people are complaining about it. Oh, I'm just staying at my sister's. I'm on vacation right now. If you're wondering, it's not my usual place. Which is why if you see any reviews later after my vacation's over, it's because I recorded some of them here. Captain Marvel's alright. I think the hatred for it is blown out of proportion. I think it's ridiculous that people are still complaining about Brie Larson. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of cringy moments in the Batwoman trailer, but they are blowing it way out of proportion. I mean, seriously, how many times can you guys talk about the same fucking subject before you get sick of it? It's really annoying. I'm surprised I didn't try to do this sooner. But then again, I haven't had a good spot. I know if you curious what I think of the, you know, that Star Wars girl situation, I'm not going to talk about it for long, but I think it's sickening that someone would profit off considering the fact that if your family member is missing, you don't fucking spend, go do a 3 hour stream and fucking make a bunch of money from your subscribers. That it's just disgusting to me. And that's all I'm going to say regarding that Star Wars girl. As for the other person's question, I will never go to Galaxy Edge because Disneyland is fucking too expensive. It's out of my price range, and I'm not spending over $100 just to go there for one day, plus an additional fee just to go to Galaxy's Edge. Do I like other franchises? Well, yes. I'm a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which should be obvious if you saw my thumbnail. That I had not thumbnail. My profile picture for the past almost 2 years now. Terminator. Um, there's way too many for me to name. Gundam, which is an anime franchise. Super Sentai, and various others. And Transformers, of course, not the Michael Bay shit. Oh, I love Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. As for Batman, he's cool, though a little overdone. I wish DC would focus on, you know, other superheroes. I disagree. Anime is childish for the most part, but there's some anime that are for adults. Not all anime is mindless shonen shit. There's Death Note, which you know is not just a mindless anime, that is about being the strongest. It deconstructs the concept of justice, and Code Geass is also a critique on U.S. foreign policy. Anime isn't just for children. It you obviously haven't seen much anime if you think it's for children. Judging anime based on Naruto and Dragon Ball Z is not, a valid criticism. I'm sorry, I'm just not interested. As for Terminator Dark Fate, I'm nervous. I really am. I really, do not have much faith in it. Oh yeah, Death Note's a masterpiece. Though I'm more referring to the manga because I think there's certain things I don't like about the anime's ending. Honestly, I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read the manga, but I think the way Light went out in the anime doesn't suit the character. Yeah, I can see that, but anime isn't just for kids. Neither are cartoons. As for this, hold on. Oh, as for Terminator Genesis, I hate that film. I think it's the worst movie in the Terminator franchise. As for Warhammer, I don't have any opinions on it, so I can't really comment. I probably would. Hey, if someone offered me it, to go to Disneyland and Galaxy's Edge for free, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't go. If as long as I'm not paying for it, dude. Because Disneyland to me is way too expensive. Oh, Halo's cool. You know, I think they're pretty fun. I can't really talk about the expanded universe for Halo, but the video games are could be pretty fun at times. Though I'm not a hardcore Halo fan. You'd have to ask Kyle Phantom for that because he knows a lot more about Halo than I do. Oh, about you guys, but B Level did a stream, and I don't see any reason why I can't do it. I mean, doing it on my phone is really easy. I didn't realize, you know, even though YouTube has fucked up with their updates, you know, for like the past, few years now. I don't know why I'm wearing these headphones. I think YouTube, for the most part, has been doing pretty good with their updates. Unfortunately, I'm in Northern California right now. I don't even live even close to Disneyland at this point. If you offered me that, like, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 months from now, um, I have to disagree with you. Um, MCU fan. Um, Disney is responsible for what's going on with the Star Wars movies because they own the franchise, and Lucasfilm are part of Disney, and they bear responsibility. But I think it's not fair to blame it all on Disney because you know Marvel's owned by Disney, and Marvel still delivers good films. So yeah, I really do think that it's you shouldn't blame everything on Disney Star Wars on exclusively on Disney, but they are responsible too. So they do share some blame, but not all of the blame. As for random comic fan, your question, I didn't want to see Dark Phoenix. It looked like a piece of shit. The CGI looks so bad that I've seen people do better special effects in fan films than Dark Phoenix, and I felt like it was not necessary. Oh, a YouTube rant. I could do that right now. I think their freaking copyright system's broken. I think it's ridiculous how easy you can lose your channel. I mean, someone that I follow, he just got his streaming, rights revoked just because he was, watching the debates. If you're, I'm for those American, for my American viewers here, the Democratic debates, you know, Vosh, who was doing it in a video on it, he was just commenting on it during the debates. His entire freaking channel can't do anything. It got a copyright strike. Even though it's under fair use, every other person, was talking about the debates and doing a live stream of it. It's ridiculous. Their copyright system is fucking broken. My favorite Star Wars faction. Hmm, that's a difficult one. I probably would say the Sith because I like their armor. When I'm referring to the Sith, I'm referring to the Sith in the Old Republic era. I think they're really interesting, and not to mention, you know, the Sith are always fascinating to me, and it makes me want to know more. You're right about that. They're not responsible for directing the, but they are responsible for the people that they appoint. Like Kathleen Kennedy, like all the decisions that she's been making, I do believe it does fall on Disney because these problems with the franchise have been there from the very beginning. And the fact that Disney hasn't done anything up until this point, it is kind of their fault for why there's such a huge division right now in the Star Wars fandom. So Disney does play a role because they're allowing employees like Hidalgo, Johnson, and all those other people to say shit, and it pisses more people off. I think Disney should, to some extent, take responsibility. Not full responsibility, but they should bear some blame. I can understand where you're coming from. The quality of the films, no. Though I do think Disney does need to step in and ensure quality control because it's been a disaster at how this franchise has been handled. Hold on, I gotta answer people's questions. What is your opinion about Disney fanboys who don't care about the old lore? Honestly, I don't care at this point. I think the Fandom Menace are worse because they don't care about either one of them. Um, Actually, that isn't true. A lot of OT fanboys actually don't read the new canon. A lot of OT fanboys, just watch the films. I have to respectfully disagree. As for Marvel and DC, Honestly, I think there's far better comics. I'm going by the I'm just going on a tangent about comics here. Comics that have been made other than Marvel and DC. They're so corporate now that the nothing that really happens in Marvel comics or DC is permanent, and that's what you know turns me off from reading them. I like reading some stories, but I can't follow them hardcore. Not to mention Marvel and DC, it is so difficult to keep up with all these stories they have that I'd rather just read stuff from Image or Dark Horse because when they release a series, they don't have as many books in that respective, comic like Marvel and DC has. Oh shit! Man, I need to get to those X-wing books, but unfortunately, I still have to get through the Clone Wars era, which I'm not done yet. I can't give a definitive date yet. Yeah, Corran Horn is pretty awesome. Yeah, I grew to love Corran Horn. When I read I Jedi. Yeah, the Clone Wars era is a mess. Actually, if you've read my community post, I do intend for the state of Star Wars for us to discuss TCW, not to criticize it, just so for those who are pro TCW who watches this, it's to do more of a critique on TCW from a continuity standpoint, from the Legends perspective, and then we're going to talk about it from the canon perspective, which I probably need experts on the new canon for this, or those who have kept up with it, to talk about how connected the new canon is to TCW, and the final part would do the pros and cons of removing TCW from canon and both. I don't know. I think it should be a lot of fun, but I would definitely need a lot of freaking people in that podcast who are more knowledgeable than I am on the new canon legends. On the DC shows, they don't interest me. Honestly, it, I'm just being honest. There's too many shows for me to keep up with them all. The only show I really was interested in The Flash, and I've heard that show went to shit. So I can't say if Star Wars will be worse in the next 10 years. Honestly, anything could happen. Star Wars could be great after the sequel trilogy era is done and over with, or it could just get even worse. We don't know. Unfortunately, we're probably going to need a reboot stop, or not a reboot, but movies in a first class style Star Wars movie to actually make the franchise great again. Just like if you guys are familiar with the Fox X-Men franchise, on how that went to shit, and then X-Men First Class, you know, redeemed it. Just actually, and we got better films after that. I think that's what we're going to need for Star Wars. And in my opinion, I think the best way to make Star Wars great again is they stay as far away from the Skywalker era as possible. Because as far as I'm concerned, you can't do a good follow up to the sequel trilogy. I think you'd have to go 100 years into the future, or 100 or more, in order to be so far removed from the events of the Skywalker era that it wouldn't really matter if you actually, what you did. I think even those who hated the sequels, like myself, would probably be more willing to give it a chance because, it'd be something new. There'd be nothing to compare it to, because the expanded universe goes over 139 years after Return of the Jedi, and I think that for the new canon, we'd have to go far beyond even that. This way, there's like no expectation for it, and people will be far more willing to give it a chance. That's, in my opinion, the best way to go. Hopefully we'll get more Legends. We just have to push for more after Marvel 108. I have no thoughts on Doom Patrol. Lord of the Rings is... I love Lord of the Rings. Logan was great. Logan should have been the last X-Men movie. Same thing with Deadpool 2. They should have not have made any more. Oh, when I'm referring to Doom, I'm referring to the video game that came out in 2016. That's fucking awesome. I think it's one of the greatest shooters that's come out. Let's see, I'm just making sure I didn't lose out on any comments. Thank God there's no trolls. Maybe it was a good thing I haven't done a stream in so long. Let's see. I respectfully disagree, but that's fine. Now, I have a question for everyone in the audience. Shadow of War was never canon to even the films. They were their own continuity. And I can't comment on that. You know, Shadow of War is not canon. I'm sorry. The only thing that's in Lord of the Rings that's canon are the books. That's where I stand on it. As for, I have to wait and see. Honestly, I can't just say, oh, he's gonna suck as Batman. I mean, I didn't really had faith that Ben Affleck would be able to be a good Batman, but I'm gonna go on a tangent on Ben Affleck. He sucked as Batman. He really did. I mean, he had the potential to be a good Batman, but every single movie he was in the DC EU or expanded universe, whatever the fuck you want to call it, sucked. His material had always sucked. His Batman was a boring character that was trying to be like Christian Bale. And getting a new actor to play him, I hope the next one they go as far away from Christopher Nolan as possible. Not because I hate the Christopher Nolan version, but I think we need a different take on the character so people, can, so this Batman can have an identity. Because Ben Affleck's Batman, what can you say about him? Because he's just Christian Bale 2.0. He doesn't bring anything new to the table. Honestly. I mean, say what you want about George Clooney, but George Clooney, at least his Batman felt different from Val Kilmer and Michael Keaton. If you're going to have a new actor play Batman, in my opinion, they have to feel different. If they're just trying to copy another actor, it's just not interesting to me to watch them play the character. It'd be the same thing if, my favorite Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield, and I'm glad the current actor who plays Spider-Man isn't trying to be like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. He's just being his own Spider-Man. I'm using that as an example. I want every actor that plays a superhero that I love to be different, because they're going to be different because a different actor is going to play them. So the guy who played Edward in Twilight, he could be the best Batman we've had in the past 20 years. We don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to picture him as Batman, but then again, Michael Keaton in the 1980s, no one saw him as Batman. So he could be the greatest Batman ever or the worst. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Just trying to keep up. I could see your point that people praise Logan because it was Jackson's last performance as the character. Val Kilmer wasn't a bad Batman. The problem with Val Kilmer is his best material was not in Batman Forever. It was his best scenes were deleted. I think if they kept those deleted scenes in the movie, I think he would have been a far better Batman than what we got. In my opinion, his transition, from Michael Keaton to him, it didn't feel as drastically different as, you know, him and George Clooney. But again, George Clooney is an awful Batman, but I do think he's more memorable than Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is the most forgettable Batman of all of them. Oh yeah, that I would love to see more of the Heir to Empire fan film. Oh, definitely agree if you random comic fan. People praise Logan because it was different. I haven't watched Gotham, so I can't really comment on it. Justice League versus the Avengers. Are you referring to the movie or the team? Sub Money. Sorry, I'm just looking at your previous comments. I'm just waiting for a response from you, Sub Money. When you said that Justice versus the Avengers comment, do you mean the team or the movie? Because I can't comment on the film. Oh, the team. I'm sorry, the Justice League. The Flash and Superman alone would solo the Avengers. Unless they had Scarlet Witch. If they had Scarlet Witch, it'd be over. And I'm going by the comics, mind you, not the movies. The Scarlet Witch, she's like one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. The Justice League would have no chance if they had Scarlet on their team. It would depend on their, their setup. I'm gonna wait for um, Phase 4 for Marvel. Not for a while. I haven't bought that many comics in the past year, actually, because there's just too much stuff I have. My backlog is just too big for my comics. I gotta read most of them. What do I think of Darkseid? I think he's a pretty cool villain, though I don't want, the DCEU doing him unless they do him right. Do I think Disney's gonna ruin the Old Republic era? Um, what do I think? As to be honest, I don't know. I honestly I don't know because the Old Republic era, because most people when they think of the Old Republic era, you know, they don't. Are you referring to Knights of the Old Republic? I don't know. If they get the Dumb and Dumber away from fucking Star Wars, it'll be. There's a chance for it to be good, but with them involved, yes, I think they would ruin it. I'd rather them do something else. I haven't seen Aquaman, unfortunately. When I think of Darth Crate's identity, I haven't read that part in the EU yet. I'm focusing on the Clone Wars era for right now. The Darth Bane era, it's on the tail end of the Old Republic era, especially in the EU. I don't really consider it part of the EU, not EU. You know what I mean? The Old Republic era because it takes place so close to the pre Phantom Menace era that the first one I do think it's part of that era, but the other two no. I consider the other two, a transition. What's my first favorite EU character? My favorite EU character before I read the Darth Bane trilogy was Darth Revan. After I read the Darth Bane trilogy and the Thrawn trilogy, my favorite character it became Mora J. But my first was Revan. Oh yeah, I've read the first two, volumes of Tales of. It's pretty good. Those are gonna get reviewed too. So much material. Oh shit, we're worth like 30 minutes already. Let's see if I can get. Let's see if I can get a few more questions. I think Boba Fett's more overrated than Revan. Honestly, at least Revan, you know, isn't like worshipped by fucking fanboys that have never fucking ventured outside other parts of the EU, to the extent that Boba Fett is worshipped by OT fanboys and people like Evan V. Skyver. I hate Boba Fett. If you want your Boba Fett rant, I'm going to give it right now. The reason I don't like the character of Boba Fett because I find him boring. All he is a cooler looking stormtrooper. There isn't much to him. I understand in the EU he does some pretty cool shit, but to be honest, that's not what drives me. In the EU, I'm more interested in other characters that isn't just a badass bounty hunter. It's one of the reasons why Han Solo, I find him to be the least interesting of the OT. I'm referring to of the original trio. I find Luke and Leia more interesting than Han. I find Han to be more interesting, in the EU than I do in the movies. And just Boba Fett, another reason I don't like the character, he's just overhyped. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought Boba Fett was, awesome until I saw Return of the Jedi, and when I saw him go to the Sarlacc pit, it's like, okay, fuck this character, he sucks. I thought Jango Fett was always cooler than Boba Fett, because at least Jango Fett, he actually went down with a fight and didn't go out like a bitch. I understand in the EU he survives, but I'm going by the mindset I had when I was a kid when I only watched the movies. I think it would depend on what part of the EU they would do an animated series, because the EU is large. As for an animated series, I would probably want them to do post Return of the Jedi. I wouldn't want them to adaptate every story in an animated series. Probably like the beginning of it, they could start with Truce of Bakura, and then they could do the X-Wing series, and maybe improve the best aspect of some of the bad, post Return of the Jedi stories. Because I'm not a fan of stories like the Black Fleet Crisis, and maybe they could somehow make the Crystal Star into an interesting story. No, I don't. I don't. I think it's impossible. I think if they did an animated series in post Return of the Jedi, they could easily probably do 5 or 6 seasons. The first season could focus on the pre-Thrawn trilogy stories, and then season 2 could focus on the Thrawn trilogy all the way to Vision of the Future, and season 3 can focus on young and Jedi Knights and junior Jedi Knights and adapt those to introduce the Solo children, and then season 4 can do the New Jedi Order, and Legacy of the Force could be season 5, and the final season could be Fate of the Jedi, and vice versa. That's how I would have done it anyway. And I would like it. Honestly, if Anakin Solo had turned to the dark side, I think I would stop reading the post Return of the Jedi expanded universe, because I think having more than one Anakin fall into the dark side is ridiculous. Because Anakin Solo, you know, the way the character was written, out of his character to fall to the dark side. But we can't predict how things would have gone if he had survived, because we'd be entering fan fiction territory. And I prefer not to explore the era of fan fiction in a live stream. Oh, thank you for your for your knowledge. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, yeah, I've read a lot of the EU, but I didn't even know that. That's interesting. I would prefer if they focused on finishing the existing stories they started before they can consider doing something new in the EU. Series, what? Okay. Darth Bane, I would prefer if Darth Bane was a live action movie, not a, animated. Because the way I imagine, you know, the things that happen in the Darth Bane books, I don't think animation can capture that. I would prefer a live action film to do it. That's just my preference. I imagine live action, actors and settings when I read the Star Wars novels. The reason they killed Anakin Solo was actually has to do with the Yuuzhan Vong's, their prophecy of it. It's been a long time since I've read the series, so I don't remember this exactly. The prophecy that Yuuzhan Vong had resembled, the prophecy of the Chosen One with Anakin, you know, too much, and they killed him because Anakin Solo's story was feeling too much like Anakin's. You can watch Jedi Master Daniel, and he clarifies this, in his video. Oh, anime, if it was if a Star Wars was done, I'm talking about the original trilogy era. If if they did it in the style of a like an '80s anime, like Macross and the original, Gundam series, not the very first one. I'm referring to like Zeta Gundam and Char's Counterattack. I think that would fit Star Wars. I never read Jedi versus Sith. I did, honestly, I actually, when it comes to Star Wars, the EU, I prefer the novels over the comics because I like to visualize stuff in my head more than reading a comic. Nothing against comic books. I think comic books are great. But when it comes to the Star Wars expanded universe, the reason why for the first few years of my reviews I mostly focused on the novels because the novels are more intriguing to me because the power of the mind I think is so much better than reading a comic to me. Oh, it's just a joke. It's just the idea of having Wookiee Antifa I thought was funny, and that's why I changed it. B Level created that profile picture. Oh, Chrism Empire, the first one is great. Comics are great too. It's just when it comes to comic books, I'm very picky. The artwork for a comic has to be, at least good enough so I can enjoy the story because there's been too many comics I've read throughout the years that has such garbage artwork that it makes it difficult for me to enjoy the story. Which is why this is not going to be a popular opinion. I think The Dark Knight Returns, the story itself is good, but I think the comic is overrated and the artwork is awful, and it's very difficult to read. I can't even tell what the hell's going on most of the time because it. I did give it a favorable review at the time, but when I look back on it, artwork was garbage. I thought that the animated version of the story was better than the actual comic. Well, it's been 5 years since the EU was thrown out of canon, and people haven't forgotten about it yet. I don't think it's gonna be completely forgotten. You don't wipe something that's been around for decades and expect people to forget about it easily. People will remember the EU, I think, for decades to come. It just won't be as much as the films themselves. I think it's bullshit that Disney and EA are canceling fan games, but unfortunately, it's within their right to do it. So unfortunately, legally, they have to do it. Even though I think it's bullshit. I'm not going to get into this, but I cannot see them discontinuing the Legends novels by 2020 because I feel like the license is more applying to both canon and Legends. There's no way they'd have a separate license for the EU and for canon. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you have a separate license for the same franchise? I think what's really going on is the licensing for Star Wars in general, the novels are up in 2020. I don't think it's just the EU. Because let's be honest here, if they really wanted to bury the expanded universe, Disney would have done that for Marvel. That everything that was that was released before Disney bought Marvel would have ceased to exist by now. I don't think it's going to happen. You may see Legends. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about it. I would still collect whatever books you don't have, though, just in case. I would support neither, actually. The CIS is not. I would not want to live in the CIS or the Republic. I'd be independent. Oh, I'll have to check that out. I don't know. It depends on my mood. I personally prefer Return of the Jedi from a nostalgia perspective, but I acknowledge that objectively, Empire Strikes Back is a better movie. So, for me personally, I prefer Return of the Jedi. But from a filmmaking perspective, Empire Strikes Back. I hope that doesn't feel like a cop out. Nintendo's E3 was pretty good, though the bullshit with the Pokemon pisses me off. Oh, Revenge of the Sith. I thought you were referring to Return of the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith. No question about it. I'm personally biased towards Revenge of the Sith, but I love that movie. Even though I can see reason why people would choose Empire Strikes Back. And from a filmmaking perspective, I think Empire is better, but I will always prefer Revenge of the Sith. The problem with Pokemon is Game Freak keeps, you know, won't let Pokemon, have some breathing room. There's been too many damn games since 2010. And I think the very fact that Sword and Shield won't let you carry over Pokemon from, not all Pokemon, but certain Pokemon from the previous generations, it's bullshit. And not to mention that their excuse is, we want to make better animations. It's fucking horse shit. Think about it. If they really wanted to make better animations, why the fuck doesn't Game Freak, why are the animations for Pokemon Sword and Shield look the same as the 3DS games? It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I love the direct was good, but for learning about Sword and Shield and what they're doing with the game just pisses me off. I'm interested in Brightburn, but I'm gonna have to wait for it to come out on Blu-ray, unfortunately. Diamond and Pearl remakes. I'm nervous because of what they're doing with Sword and Shield. The graphics in Sword and Shield look like shit. I mean, seriously, for a 3DS, not 3DS, a Switch game, it should look much better. Papa Wedge, I'm doing fine. I'm just testing this live stream. I was considered as doing that as a secondary content in the future, considering the fact that, well, reviews, I don't want to just do reviews, and I kind of want to change things up a bit. Palpatine's name was actually first revealed in the New Hope novelization, if you care to know. I can't comment on Resident Evil. Though, one thing I will say, though, about Nintendo's is I'm going to comment on their E3. I think they did pretty good. I mean, the announcement of Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Ultimate was awesome. It was great. I did not expect it. And even though I'm not a fan of Sora, Banjo-Kazooie's inclusion in Smash Ultimate made Sora's inclusion in Smash even more likely. So, for those who are Sora fans, cross your fingers. I'm not. You may get that character. Thank Banjo-Kazooie for that. Yeah, I do, actually. I do have Steam. I haven't really used it that much, though. Yeah, I find it weird that he would not reveal it to reveal it to him, despite the fact this was knowledge in Star Wars lore, for over 20 years prior to the Phantom Menace coming out. I find that weird. The game I'm looking forward to the most, at least it's coming out, in the near future on the Nintendo Switch, is Mario Maker 2. I can't wait for that game to come out tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. I'm absolutely stoked for it. Hopefully I can make a better level in Mario Maker 2 than I did in the first one. As for the Xbox, they revealed some pretty cool stuff. Tales of Arise was revealed, which those, if you guys don't know about the Tales, series, I'm a fan of those, and I'm looking forward to the next Tales game. No, I don't really read the new canon. Honestly, it doesn't interest me. I mean, there has been some stuff I did check out, like Master and Apprentice and Queen's Shadow, which featured characters that aren't featured very much in Star Wars. So I checked out the new canon that much. Because every time I read the new canon, it takes away time from the EU. I just don't got the time, even if I wanted to read the new canon, to read it. There's other stuff I'm more interested in. Like, I'm currently going through the Wheel of Time. I'm on book 5 at this time, and if I focused on the Disney canon, that would delay that. So I just don't have time for it. There's too much books I have to read, and I don't want to read the new canon. They're on the bottom of the barrel of stuff I want to read at the moment, even if I wanted to read it. Not to mention, I want to be familiar with the Dune series, because Dune's having a movie next year, and I really want to be familiar with the source material. Honestly, it depends on what you like. For me, I have no interest in the new Dragon Ball game, because I'm not interested in playing through the story of Dragon Ball Z like a millionth time. I think the story of the Saiyan saga all the way to, Majin Buu has been done to death. And I think that we should move on to bigger and better things. I think Xenoverse is something I prefer. Though if you are a fan of fighting games, I would get Fighter Z. Actually, if you prefer fighting games, but if you are more of a fan of of RPGs, I don't know what kind of game it is. I was just never interested in it. Nothing can save the sequel trilogy, in my opinion. The only thing that could save the sequel trilogy at this point would be just to move on and accept it as a failure. Because that's what it is to me. It's best just to accept that, it's a failure. You can't save it. I mean, if you didn't like the last two movies, you're not going to like, the whole trilogy. It'd be the same thing for those who don't like the prequels. I mean, there's those who don't like the prequels that like Revenge of the Sith. That doesn't mean they like the prequels. They only like one of the movies. Well, the thing about the new canon, when I'm talking about cells, another reason why, in my personal opinion, I don't think they're going to, you know, yeah, sorry, I losing my train of thought. The reason why I don't think they're going to discontinue them at this time, at least, at least Del Rey would if they have a choice. Del Rey knows what sells and what doesn't, because new canon reprints sit on store shelves. They really do. And yeah, you may see more in some Barnes and Nobles new canon books than Legends. But then again, that's going to happen because Legends hasn't had a new release for, you know, 5 years now in the novels. Of course, there's going to be more new canon books on the shelves, but when I go to a Barnes and Noble, I do see Legends move. I never see the new canon move, and if it does move, it's very rare. Most of the stuff that sells in the new canon in the novels is the hardcovers. Like once the first week or second week, they rot on store shelves. I mean, I've seen a copy of of a book that came out late 2017 that was still being sold at Barnes and Noble. It was collecting dust. I think what they simply need to do is stop being afraid to reveal information in the new canon and just give the fans of the new canon what they want. Actually interesting information. Enough with this being afraid to reveal shit. That's how I stand. I'm not a fan of the new canon, but they need to stop being afraid to reveal information. Okay, now I gotta read some comments. Yeah. Oh yeah, Fighter Z has a cool story. If you are interested in the story mode, you would like Fighter Z. Though I play it for the fun gameplay. I have no I have nothing no I can't think of anything to say about it because we don't know what it would have been like. It would have been cool. Honestly, as I even though I don't really like this idea much, I think I think in order to I think they should establish that Star Wars has a multiverse, and that they could still keep the canon separate. It's just, in my opinion, we're at a point where there's multiple different timelines that exist in Star Wars, and it looks like there's going to be multiple more timelines. There's going to be that at this point. I think it'd be for the best that we embrace multiple timelines at this point. Even because being angry at canon fans, as much as I hate to say this, I did this in the past, is not going to accomplish Legend's goal of getting more. I think we should try to coexist as much as possible. As for the fanboys, well, there's fanboys on both sides, so there's that. Yeah, that the problem is there's no effort put into the canon novels. For every master and apprentice, there's like a aftermath. The new novels are not that interesting. Oh, cool! I love retro games. I'm probably gonna be more of a retro gamer as time goes on because I hate where the gaming industry is heading. Which retro games is good to me? Huh. That's a different stream altogether because there's too many. Favorite EU novel: Darth Bane: Path of Destruction. I think it's the best EU novel in my opinion, and in my opinion, the best book in the Darth Bane trilogy. I think I'll keep this up. I see nothing wrong with that, considering the fact that I'm enjoying this. I just wanted to test this out. As I would like to one day, I think, re-review that book because I don't think I did it justice at all. Oh yeah, it's definitely nighttime where I live. Honestly, I don't like the new canon because it doesn't feature what I want in Star Wars. I want Jedi and I want lightsabers. I'm not interested in reading about, you know, the average soldier and the rebellion and the Empire. I'm just not interested. Now, I wouldn't mind reading about the clones and the Clone Wars era, but then again, I have a bias because I'm more nostalgic towards the prequels, and I just find the Clone Wars era far more interesting than the Rebellion era. Favorite console generation? Um, that's a difficult one, but probably the Super Nintendo and the PS2, which is Gen 4 and Gen 6. That's my favorite console generation. Because most of the games that have nostalgic memories for are from that generation. Well, I can understand why some people would like the new canon more than Legends, because some people are not too interested in and the amount of Force users that exist in the EU, and I can understand why people want to read about, the average Joe in the Star Wars universe. And I do think, there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, there's too many of those kind of stories in the new canon because the Jedi to me is what interests me about Star Wars. Without it, you know, it, I'm just not as interested. I don't mind reading about non-Force users. It's just when there's so many stories of non-Force users, I just get bored. I want it to be changed up once in a while. And I think you can make an argument there may be too many Jedi in the EU, that they should maybe focus more on non-Force users. That's a valid point. But I just think they're overdoing it. Because to me, the Jedi and the Sith is what makes Star Wars stand out from, you know, other sci-fi franchises. Taking the Force out of Star Wars is like taking the one power from the Wheel of Time. It's like taking wizards out of Harry Potter. It's like taking I'm just thinking, sorry. Okay, I can't think of any more. It's like taking magic, you know, out of whatever. I'm sorry. It's just there's I just think there's too much emphasis on the military aspect of the new canon, and that doesn't interest me. 3 favorite EU characters: Mora Jade, Jason Solo, and Darth Bane. Those are my favorite characters in the EU. I have to disagree with you. I don't think TCW definitely belongs in the new canon. Obi-Wan with the high ground. Batman cannot prepare himself for the power of the high ground. I don't know. They'll probably bring back Revan in some shape or form. As Mora Jade will probably be brought back too. I can't see Mora Jade staying exclusively in Legends. Superman would kill Batman, even with prep time. Thor could crush Green Lantern. Probably Deadpool. It was clearly established in canon in the comics that Superman could beat Batman. Even Batman acknowledges this. Batman cannot, you know, win against Superman. The thing is, I think they should go with the Marvel approach when it comes to taking characters from the EU. Because, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, yeah, there's differences with some of the characters from the comics, but a good chunk of them are still recognizable. And I think instead of trying to, pretend that the material prior to Disney doesn't exist, they should fully embrace everything. They should draw from the EU. They should be proud of the EU rather than ashamed of it. They need to go the Marvel route if they want to make Star Wars great. Yeah, Batman is kind of OP, which is one of the reasons why the character is just not as interesting to me. I think he's more OP than Superman, because Superman, we know he's OP. He was written to be that way, but Batman has the most plot armor of any of the DC characters. Sorry. Incredible Hulk versus Superman. Probably Hulk. Hulk would wreck Superman. I'm sorry. As even though I think Superman is one of the most powerful characters, Hulk's power is almost limitless. There's no way Superman would win. Who cares? What I've heard from Justice League, I've heard it was terrible. Move on and focus on the future. Snyder fanboys are awful. They need to accept the fact that the Justice League is a terrible film and move on. That's probably what would happen. Oh God, that scene in Batman v Superman was cringe. I don't know. You're asking someone that has only a surface knowledge of DC lore. Yeah, you're right. I mean, to be fair on Zack Snyder, at least his movies, at least they're original. At least the way they look visually. And at least Zack Snyder isn't like Rian Johnson and goes around attacking fans. At least he's civil. So I guess you can give him credit for that. I think Zack Snyder haters can be just as obnoxious as the fanboys. You are right, respectful MCU fan. They're staying away from the EU. I could agree with you on that. Oh, I'm calling it right now. Wait till the fandom. Wait till Dave Filoni does something with their beloved Ahsoka. I'm calling it. If he makes Ahsoka into a lesbian in the final season of TCW, they will freaking go off. They will turn on Filoni. Give them time. What's actually funny about their worship of Filoni, Dave Filoni is an anti-fascist. Dave Filoni is a liberal. I mean, if these people watch some TCW episodes and paid attention, there's an episode where they do a critique on the tax cuts, you know, that, you know, the US government is doing and the Obama was doing to increase the military budget. They did a critique on that. So he's an anti-fascist. They don't know a damn thing about Filoni. I'm not a fan of Filoni, but I could at least respect him in that respect, that he isn't a fascist. Yeah, I know. I don't like Filoni. I'm just saying, from a political standpoint, I like the fact that he isn't a fascist, and at least he isn't a turd like Hidalgo. I mean, if you want to know my opinion, I think Hidalgo is a bigger threat, in my opinion, than anyone in Lucasfilm. Martha Lives Matter. Oh God, we should do a thumbnail on that. Yeah, I do think he's overrated, Dave Filoni, but I don't want to rant about TCW on this stream. The only thing I could say is, how could someone be considered a great creator? Why'd you say that? Great creator when his shows take 2 to 3 seasons to get good. I mean, come on. I hate to say this. I'm probably this will be my last rant because I don't want my phone to die before that midstream. Our time is valuable, and if we shouldn't have to wait 2 to 3 seasons for a show to get good. And in my opinion, I think that the Dave Filoni gets too much of a free pass when it comes to, you know, garbage content in Star Wars. Because let's be honest, even if you like TCW, you gotta admit most of it is garbage. I mean, you could probably, if you're looking for great TCW episodes or good ones, in my opinion, it's only like about 10 to 5% of the series, and I'm just being generous. A show shouldn't take, that many seasons to get good. I could agree with that. I mean, I thought the best TCW, you know, sorry, I was reading a comment. The best TCW was at its best when it did when it focused on the clones and when it focused on its own characters. That's when it was at its best. When it, focused on characters that existed in the EU in the movies, that's when it was at its worst. And I think TCW, the entire show should have been about the clones. It should have focused on the clones. Rex, his battalion of the clones should have been the main characters. Because honestly, they were the best developed characters. Rex, I thought, was one of the best things about TCW, if not the best thing. And I think the entire show should have focused on the clones. That's when the show was at its best. But that thing that's frustrating me, the show had some great material going for it with the clones, and rather than continue with that, they continue to do pointless freaking shit. And yeah, TCW to me had wasted potential. And if me, I think the show should have lasted for a few seasons. It felt like they just wanted to stretch the show to last as long as possible. Rex and his entire clone battalion, you could have easily made 2 seasons worth of that, and it could have been a great show. And honestly, the reason why TCW gets so much praise now because the show has ended. There was so much episodes that that was just bad that TCW apologists just seem to forget about. I don't think it's as good as people remember it. Now I'm gonna address some comments before I end this stream because the current state of Mass Effect, honestly, Mass Effect died with Mass Effect 3. They should have stopped. Okay, I'm just reading some comments. All right, it was nice to do this stream with you guys. I'm looking forward to do another one in the future. I really enjoyed this. I won't do one so suddenly in the future, though. I'll answer one last question before I go. Far From Home looks okay, and that's all I'm going to say. See you guys later, and have a good night.